The Unseen Watchers. Chapter 1. The Strange Stairs. I stepped off the bus, breathing in the familiar scent of decaying leaves and stagnant air as I returned to Oakwood after a year away at college. Memories flooded my mind. Late nights spent with friends by the creek, laughter that echoed through alleys, and whispers about ghost stories. Yet, this time, there was an unsettling quiet that clung to every corner, suffocating the very essence of our small town. The rustling of leaves seemed too loud in the stillness, and even the birds remained hushed as if they too felt the unease that had settled over us all. My parents' eyes were sunken, their smiles rarely reaching their eyes. They greeted me warmly but distant, as if I was a ghost from another life. Neighbors who once waved or called out passed by on the street without acknowledging my presence, heads bowed in an unspoken understanding of what lingered between us. It wasn't until I walked into our house that I realized just how entrenched this strange behavior was. My mother moved mechanically around the kitchen, her hands trembling as she set down a plate of food before me. She avoided direct eye contact, and my father sat in his armchair with an unread newspaper on his lap, eyes staring at nothing. Something had shifted, but I couldn't put my finger on it. As I settled into my childhood room, the creaking floorboards felt like whispers. In the night's hush, when shadows cast the most sinister shapes, I heard muffled voices carrying from outside, murmurs and footsteps that never seemed to culminate in any discernible actions. Every door slam echoed through the empty streets. As days passed, more of our neighbors vanished, leaving behind abandoned homes. No news about their fate reached us, only an unsettling silence. People whispered of disappearances, but no one dared speak openly. It was as if something had taken them all, leaving behind hollowed-out lives and vacant souls. One day, while out for a walk along the familiar path where I once explored with friends, I noticed my reflection in a window of Mrs. Jenkins' abandoned house, glass smeared with grime from years uncleaned. The image stared back at me, distorted by the grimy surface. A silhouette moved behind me, an unmistakable rustling of leaves before it vanished into shadow. I whirled around to find nothing, yet my heart hammered in protest of reason. In those days, there were no signs of forced entry, no bloodstains on the floorboards or shattered windows. It was as if they had simply vanished, leaving behind only an eerie emptiness. My family was a powder keg of emotions. I could taste their unease but not understand it. My mother avoided talking in hushed tones whenever Dad spoke to her about bills or work problems. The old man from next door mumbled incomprehensibly when I passed by, his eyes darting away like he witnessed horrors unseen. He was never one for words, and now there were no questions to ask. It became my task to find answers amidst the eerie quiet. During a visit to the local library for research materials, whispers seemed to follow me through aisles of books that always felt cozy. Eyes caught mine, only to quickly look away, eyes haunted by what they saw in their own minds. The librarian kept her distance behind the circulation desk. I found an old-town history book with yellowed pages and a single entry, The Watchers. Folk tales whispered about shadowy figures that preyed upon the unwary, but it sounded like folklore, the stuff of childhood nightmares. Still, the more people vanished, the more I clung to this story as an explanation. As autumn's veil fell over Oakwood, my investigations began with a walk down memory lane. The abandoned Jenkins house, once my playground, now stood empty and still, a testament to the eerie calm that had settled upon us all. I noticed the attic window shatter from outside. Cautiously, I pushed it open, revealing layers of dust and time trapped in forgotten trunks. Breathe by breathe, I climbed up silted boxes and unwanted hurdle. My fingers brushed against something metallic, a camera covered with a tattered velvet cloth. Inside, a hidden box concealed more than memories. I found photographs, hollow-eyed faces from decades past, each image dated and never documented. The subjects were Oakwood's missing souls, their stories swallowed by the very fabric of our history. A chill crept down my spine as I realized they were all smiling. Yet something else was amiss with these images, a shadow that wasn't a shadow in every frame. It was watching me, recording us, capturing what we believed to be our deepest fears. The camera clicked once more, the lens snapping off without human intervention. I bolted down, heart pounding as if it had sensed my gaze. That night, my room grew colder than autumn's bite. Shadows moved along walls, realities that didn't belong in our world. In sleep, a dream assaulted me. Figures watching from trees with eyes blacker than the night sky. Upon waking, I knew what I saw, what I knew. It was then I understood the watchers were real and they had come back for us all. Chapter 2. The Locked Attic. I spent days researching by candlelight, a solitary act in our now vacant town. My parents' conversations turned to muffled murmurs late at night, too afraid to discuss aloud the horror unfolding around us. It wasn't until I found more images, families caught in domestic bliss, each smile a facade that concealed their own private terrors, that the truth began dawning on me. They had been watched and recorded, studied for whatever twisted purpose. The camera had been here long before my return, a silent observer of Oakwood's secrets. As night approached with its promise of darkness, I ventured up to the attic once more, determined to unmask this entity. A cold breeze swept in as I entered, carrying an unmistakable scent, like with smoke and salted earth. In a corner, an old trunk held my childhood photographs, the same ones my mother had taken during our last summer before college. I recognized faces from those vanished pictures. A boy who never left home, Mrs. Jenkins, who baked the town's best cookies, even Mr. Wright with his iconic baseball cap. They were all smiling in these strange images, a silent plea to be spared. Photographs of missing people. My heart stuttered as I realized that the watchful I had been here for decades, observing and recording Oakwood's history. Suddenly, a click echoed from behind me. The camera hung, suspended midair in front of me, focusing on a new subject, me. A flicker of light emanated from its lens. A single frame captured before it fell to the floor, revealing an image I didn't want to acknowledge, yet my mind did. My face staring back with sunken eyes and parted lips. The camera had found a new target, the last living soul. In that moment, I saw them all, the people who disappeared as mere specters. A presence lingered, unseen but palpable, watching from the rafters, a silent photographer documenting our lives. As the days passed, their numbers dwindled. My family spoke in hushed tones when they thought me asleep or gone for work. I could no longer dismiss it. Too many truths were unraveling. The figure haunting these walls had been watching generations of Oakwood residents. One morning, I awoke to find the town's oldest resident, Mr. Wright, standing in my doorway. The man who baked cookies that filled our lives with warmth and wonder. His face was gaunt, eyes hollow, teeth gone. His baseball cap fell to the floor like an offering. They had all been taken by it. Every smile a ruse before their souls were devoured. The presence lingered, an invisible hand in every frame, a ghostly photographer. I'd be next if I didn't find out what they wanted or how to stop them. And then there was the matter of the last frame, my face. In that moment, I decided to keep searching, for it seemed my existence had become the last chapter in this tome of Oakwood's horrors. Chapter 3. A Mirror's Reflection. The figure began leaving photographs on our doorstep, a series from every vanished soul, frozen moments of their terror, a farewell from the unseen. A new image arrived, the final one, their life caught between joy and damnation, a warning for the last soul remaining, which was me. My heart raced as I reached for it. I'd have to be quick if I wanted answers or escape this silent hell. In the attic now, something moved in the rafters. A muffled click preceded a flash from within shadows. The camera, my family, nothing but an empty house awaited downstairs. Out of options, I turned on the machine. In its eye, there they stood, their faces twisted by terror, trapped moments frozen in time. And then I saw her, my mother's face, a smile that hid a scream, the final moment of their capture. The camera hung, suspended from a beam, lens pointed at me with an unblinking stare. The last frame had been taken. It waited for the final shot. Their true victim, myself. That night, as I prepared to leave, the darkness within moved behind me, a cold breath that was never there before. I took one last look. Every soul's moment captured on celluloid, trapped in this house by something ancient and malevolent. My mother would not be next. In desperation, I aimed the lens at myself, a beam of moonlight, my solitary light.